Help me hit 7,000 subscribers. Support the video with a like and share your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. Thank you. My name is Callum, and if you had asked me a year ago what the happiest sound in my life was, I would have said my wife's laugh. It used to fill the house, warm, bright, effortless. But somewhere along the way that laugh changed. It grew sharp, shallow, weaponized. I didn't realize how far things had slipped until the day she called me on speaker, surrounded by her friends, and announced she was filing for divorce. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My wife, Emily, was always the center of her circle, bold, stylish, the one people gravitated toward. When she laughed, others joined in out of instinct. I used to love that about her. I loved how alive she was. But lately, that liveliness wasn't directed at me. It was directed at her new friends. Girls who lived for brunch tables, Instagram reels, and gossip that floated somewhere between truth and performance. I didn't mind her having friends, but I began noticing little shifts. Whispered conversations when I walked in. Glances exchanged. Those tiny smiles people wear when they know something you don't. One of her friends in particular, Lila, always had a smirk ready, like she was waiting for me to fail a test no one told me I was taking. The cracks started the night Emily came home smelling of tequila and someone else's perfume. She wasn't cheating, at least not then. But she came in laughing too loudly, holding her heels in one hand and her phone in the other. Her cheeks were flushed, her eyes glassy, and her words slurred just enough. When I asked how her night was, she waved me off. Relax, Cal. Not everything needs a debrief. But that wasn't her. She used to tell me everything. The weird stranger she met at the bar, the couple fighting at the next table, the dessert she loved and wanted me to try. Then came the secrecy, the locked phone, the sudden password changes, the inside jokes she shared with her friends that made her blush but made me cold. Yet I tried to keep things steady. I cooked dinner. I asked about her day. I planned things for us. Most nights she'd say she was too tired, yet stayed up texting, giggling under the glow of her phone screen. One Saturday morning, I heard her in the kitchen with Lila and another friend, Marley. They were preparing for a girls' trip. I walked in just in time to hear Marley say, "So when are you finally going to drop the dead weight?" I froze. Emily didn't defend me. She just laughed. Sharp, dismissive. "He'll figure it out eventually." That laugh stung more than the words. Still, I didn't say anything. I told myself it was stress or bad influence or a rough patch. I kept giving grace to someone who had stopped offering me any. Then came the call. I was fixing a cabinet hinge in the kitchen when my phone buzzed. I saw Emily's name pop up, and before I even answered, something felt off. Like the universe inhaled sharply. I swiped open the call. "Hey Em, everything okay?" Laughter. Multiple people. Loud. "Yeah," she said. "Actually, Callum, I wanted to tell you something important." Her voice was fake sweet, the way she talked when she was showing off. "You're on speaker," she added. "The girls are here." More laughter in the background. I forced my voice steady. "Okay. What's going on?" She didn't hesitate. "I'm filing for divorce. And yes, I'm taking half." Then, like a rehearsed chorus, her friends roared with laughter. My hand went still on the cabinet door. It wasn't the words. It was the cruelty in the tone. The celebration of it. She added, "Don't act surprised. Lila said you wouldn't handle it well. But here you are, silent already." The girls giggled. One said, "Cheers to freedom." Another said, "Finally, Em. Long overdue." My chest tightened in a way I hadn't felt before. Not heartbreak, not panic, just clarity. A sudden, slicing clarity. I brought the phone closer to my ear and said, very calmly, "Oh, Emily's laughing? Interesting." The laughter quieted slightly, just enough for me to hear the shift in the room. I continued, "Does she already know you're taking her husband too, Lila?" The silence that followed was absolute. Emily's breath caught. Lila choked on whatever she'd been drinking. Marley whispered, What is he talking about?" But I didn't elaborate. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I just let the question hang there like smoke, slow, suffocating, undeniable. Because the truth was, I had known more than they thought, and they had no idea what was coming next. The room was silent on the speakerphone, the kind of silence that presses against your chest and makes every heartbeat thunder in your ears. I could almost hear Emily thinking, "How does he know?" while her friends shuffled awkwardly, unsure if this was a game or something far more serious. I kept my voice calm, almost deceptively so. "Emily, I don't need an answer right now. I just needed to hear it from you directly, rather than through your little audience." There was a pause, then a small, nervous laugh from Emily. "Callum, what are you talking about?" I let out a slow breath, letting my patience hang in the air. "I'm talking about honesty, about respect, about the fact that you've made your choices and I've been observing. That's all." Her friends muttered something, but I didn't care. The power of the moment wasn't in shouting over them. It was in letting them feel the weight of reality. Laughter doesn't mask truth, no matter how loud it is. Then Emily said, almost under her breath, "You're serious?" I let a tiny smile slip. Not triumphant, not cruel, just calm, calculated. "Yes, very serious, and very aware." I hung up. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt a pulse of freedom. Not because I had won or humiliated her, but because I had clarity. I knew exactly where I stood. And more importantly, I knew what I wouldn't tolerate anymore. That evening, I sat alone in our living room, letting the quiet sink in. The house felt different. The walls no longer seemed confining. The air was lighter, though heavy with unspoken truths. I realized something crucial. For years, I had given myself entirely to a relationship that was draining me, chasing approval and affection that had long since vanished. And in chasing it, I had lost pieces of myself. I texted Clara, my sister, who had always been a quiet observer in my life. "Emily's officially filing." Laughed with her friends about it. "I'm okay." Strange, but okay. Her reply came instantly. "You're finally seeing clearly, Callum. Don't let them gaslight you." I smiled, grateful for her words, because that's what this was, gaslighting, manipulation disguised as humor. They had all laughed, assuming I would crumble. But instead I had paused, listened, and then measured my response. Not with emotion, but with precision. The next few weeks were interesting. Emily sent lawyers' details. I complied. I hired a firm, small, efficient, no nonsense. I made sure every account, every subscription, every little financial entanglement was transparent. Not out of spite, but out of necessity. She had chosen this battlefield, and I would respond with calm, calculated order. But it wasn't just the paperwork. It was the stories that came out later, small, subtle hints that confirmed my suspicions. Texts she had deleted, comments she thought I hadn't heard, plans whispered in the dark while I slept. They weren't cheating in the dramatic sense, no flamboyant betrayals, but they had taken pieces of the life we shared and treated them as tokens for someone else's amusement. One evening, Lila tried to contact me through Emily's social media. She thought she could explain, charm, or intimidate, but I had no interest in their performance. I simply replied, "All matters are now legal. Anything else is irrelevant." The message went unread, and in that moment, I realized something profound. Respect, once lost, cannot be begged back. Affection cannot be forced. Laughter cannot heal wounds it helped create. The only thing you can do is preserve your own integrity and walk forward with it intact. Weeks later, I sat in the park near our old apartment. Children played nearby, the sun lowering in the sky, painting everything golden. And I felt a peace I hadn't felt in a long time. Not giddy or triumphant, just steady. I could breathe again without the weight of manipulation pressing against my chest. It's funny, people think divorce is loud, screaming, fighting, courtrooms filled with venom. But for me, it was quiet. The storm had passed before anyone even noticed it started. And in that quiet, I found strength. Emily finally tried reaching out one night. She texted, "Can we talk?" I paused, staring at the message. Part of me wanted to feel anger, regret, betrayal, but I felt neither. I typed simply, deliberately, "I've moved on." All communication through our lawyers. "Take care, Emily." That was it. No venom. No temptation to explain myself. Just clarity. Later, I learned the laughter on that speakerphone wasn't just cruelty. It was projection. They laughed because they didn't want to admit they had misjudged me. That their games wouldn't work. That the husband they thought was easy prey was quietly reclaiming his life, piece by piece. And now, months later, as I reflect, I understand the lesson. People will underestimate you, manipulate you, and even mock you. But your response is your choice. Walk away. Preserve your integrity. And never let anyone make your self-worth a punchline. I'm not bitter. I'm not vengeful. I'm free. And that freedom, that quiet triumph, tastes infinitely better than any loud celebration ever could. Because in the end, it wasn't about taking half. It wasn't about revenge. It was about keeping all of myself, even when they laughed, even when they thought I wouldn't notice, even when the world seemed to side with their amusement. And that's the story I carry now, the story of the day laughter didn't break me, but showed me exactly who I was meant to be.